Hello, I'm Dr. Motwani, and I'm a clinical health psychologist. I specialize in using psychological and behavioral skills to manage some of the symptoms of many different types of chronic medical conditions, such as chronic migraines. The strategy I'm going to introduce to you in this video series is a very effective approach called mindfulness. As a migraine sufferer myself, I've found that practicing mindfulness can be really beneficial, not just for managing the symptoms around my headaches, but also just for general well-being and health. You've probably heard the term mindfulness show up in articles, podcasts, maybe even in your newsfeed, but what exactly is it, and can it actually help you with managing your migraines? In this video, I'm going to talk more about the definition of mindfulness, as well as some strategies to cultivate your own mindfulness practice. In the next few videos after that, I'm going to walk you through some of my favorite mindfulness meditation practices. The mindfulness is a state of awareness or being in which you're intentionally paying full attention to the present moment without judgment and without necessarily trying to change anything that's happened. It's simply allowing the moment to be and observing it as it flows into the next moment. So mindfulness is not necessarily clearing your mind or emptying your mind. It's more like watching your mind and just experiencing what comes and what goes. So mindfulness is an approach to living, but it's also a skill that you can practice and build. And it can be very helpful to apply in moments when you might be experiencing pain or discomfort, such as when having a headache. A lot of research has shown that mindfulness is already really effective for managing other medical conditions like gastrointestinal difficulties or hypertension. And there's now considerable evidence that incorporating a mindfulness practice as a supplement to your other migraine treatment can actually result in helping manage or lower the frequency of migraines, prevent future attacks, or lessen the severity of a headache. Plus, it's great for stress management, it's all natural, and there are no side effects. So you really have nothing to lose from learning this skill. So how can practicing mindfulness help specifically with migraines? Well, we know that the brain and the nervous system of a person who gets chronic migraines is just more reactive to changes in the body or in the environment. So that's why going a few nights without sleeping properly or skipping a meal or even stress, which causes a lot of physical changes in the body, any of those things can trigger a migraine attack. Unfortunately, we also know if you get chronic migraines, the suffering doesn't just end with the physical effects itself. It can really start to impact other parts of your life, like your productivity, your work life, family life, even your mood or what you can plan to get done for the day. And so sometimes the stress from these symptoms can again fire up that nervous system, either making existing symptoms worse or triggering yet another migraine attack. The problem is stress is a part of life and we can't get rid of it. Nor do we want to necessarily, because sometimes stress can be positive. And every time we get through a stressful situation, we do learn something important about ourselves. However, what we can do is train our bodies and minds to be less reactive to stressors and triggers. If you're able to respond to triggers in a different way, your body responds less and stays more balanced. And this can ultimately help you to better manage and feel more in control of your migraines. So what does it take to learn how to practice mindfulness? Well, the good news is anyone can do it. You don't have to be a yogi or even have meditated before. It's a skill that anyone can learn. But I would say that like any skill, such as learning the piano, it does take practice and commitment. You already know that you can't just take one piano lesson and suddenly be able to play like Chopin. It takes practice, and it might feel awkward at first. You might even forget to practice, but eventually it starts to feel more natural and enjoyable, a part of your life, and something you even look forward to. And then before you know it, you're opening at Carnegie Hall. Well, I can't promise you that, but I do know that if you practice mindfulness every day, you will start noticing changes in yourself, and you will feel the benefit of those changes. So there are a few ways that you can start to cultivate a mindfulness practice. You can build your skills with both a formal or an informal practice, or a combination of both, as I do. In the next few videos, I'm going to walk you through a few ways to formally practice mindfulness. In a formal practice, you're intentionally setting aside some time. It could be 10 or 15 minutes. And during that time, you sit and mindfully attend to what you're experiencing in the moment. For instance, you can just simply become aware of the rhythm of your breath, or notice if there's any tension in your muscles, or simply just observe your thoughts and feelings that come during that time, without judging or without trying to change any of those experiences. When you are practicing mindfulness, you might notice that at first your mind is constantly getting distracted. That is totally normal and totally okay. Your goal is to just observe when that happens and then gently bring your mind back to the present moment. There's a saying that mindfulness is your mind getting it distracted 1,000 times and bringing your attention back 1,001 times. And just like working out any muscle, the more you practice, the stronger your mindfulness muscle will become. Informal practice involves intentionally doing any kind of routine activity, such as drinking your morning coffee or taking a shower, and doing that activity with full present moment awareness and without any distractions. So for example, when you're drinking your morning coffee, if you were going to practice that mindfully, you might really savor in the aromas, really pay attention to the feeling and the texture of the liquid, the temperature, and drink that coffee very mindfully and presently. When you're showering mindfully, you might really pay attention to the sensations of the water, the soap, the temperature, any other feelings you experience, and really just be in that moment. So often our mind wants to wander or think about other things we have to do during the day or things that happened the day before. When you're being mindful, you're making the intention to just be in the moment and experience what is happening then. So I recommend setting aside time for a daily formal practice, at least 10 or 15 minutes. And I found that it can also be really helpful to create a comfortable space in your home or your office where you can go to practice mindfulness every day. But if you're busy like most of us are and struggle to create a formal daily practice, I encourage you to think about how else you can incorporate mindfulness into your day-to-day life. Can you be present as possible when you're eating your breakfast or feeding your children or walking to your car? Every time you intentionally practice mindfulness, you're building your mindfulness muscles. And practicing daily, whether formally or informally, can help your body ultimately become more balanced and less reactive to triggers and stress. And this is a mechanism that can help prevent or reduce migraine attacks. I often get asked about using mindfulness when you're in the middle of having a migraine. So what I would say is that practicing mindfulness on a daily basis is really where you would get the most benefit. Your body really learns how to respond less or react less to stressors, and that can really help with preventing attacks. And then once your mindfulness muscles have been built up from a regular practice, you can apply this skill even when having a headache attack. So many people find that mindfulness can either lessen the severity of a headache or the distress and anxiety that so often come with it. I should say though that practicing mindfulness during a migraine attack is different from using distraction or a relaxation skill, which are two tools that are also very helpful for coping. When you're using mindfulness during a migraine attack, you're actually not trying to avoid or change the discomfort you are experiencing. Instead, you are allowing it to be, observing it without struggling. And I must admit that this was a really difficult concept for me to understand when I first started practicing. Our instinct is so often to avoid pain or get away as far as we can from it, or even respond with fear or despair. What I and many people have found, however, is that by accepting and not struggling with pain, you're actually able to transcend the pain, and you might then experience less suffering and less of the emotional distress that comes from it. And that frees you up to respond better to your own needs, such as the need for rest or the need for social support. In the next few videos, I'm going to walk you through some of my favorite mindfulness practices.